Hello all, good to see you again. Last week we discussed the variables in Kotlin. Today we are moving on to one of the most interesting features in Kotlin, that is nullability. We are going to see why Kotlin is so much better at handling null pointer exceptions than Java. Also, we will look into several options to handle the null cases. Let's start now. If you're coming from a Java background, then you will know how crucial is a null pointer exception. A variable that doesn't refers to anything refers to null. So, if you try to access an object that is null, then a null pointer exception occurs. Hence, null pointer exceptions are sweetly called as the $1 billion mistake. Kotlin was designed to eliminate the possibility of null as much as possible. In Kotlin, types are non-null by default. Let's see how we can declare a non-null type. We are sports type of string, and let's name it as football. And if you try to something like giving a null value to this sports variable, sports is equal to null, the compiler is throwing us some errors. It says that null cannot be a value of a non-null type string. It's just that the compiler already knows the variable sports is a type of non-null, so you cannot in any way give the value null to the sports variable. If you really want to give one, then you have to explicitly tell the compiler that maybe this can be a null. So you do that by adding a question mark at the end of the type. See, now the compiler will allow you to add a null value to the sports variable. It's because you told the compiler specifically that yes, it can be a null value, I'm not sure. In the same way, you can declare another variable like goals, integer, and let's change it as 5. And you put it as null, it throws another error. So, in order to tell the compiler it can be null, you do that by suffixing a question mark. Easy. Imagine if you want to find the length of the sports variable. You do that by entering sports.length right. Sorry, sports.length right. But the compiler is throwing us some errors again. It's because you already declared the variable sports as it can be null, right? So the compiler won't let you uh, go without a guarantee. Like it needs some guarantee to make sure if you're going to print the length of the variable sports, make sure it's not null. So the traditional way of doing that is you can easily do that by if sports variable not equal to null then get the length, right? So it's the easiest way, but the null checks are kinda annoying. The traditional null checks are kinda annoying. So Kotlin has several other ways to do these null checks. Let's look into that as well. One of the most popular ways to do null checks in Kotlin is using safe call operator. Let's see how we can implement it. For that, let's print the length of the variable sports dot length. The compiler will give us error. It says it can be null, right? So we have to do something like add a question mark at the end of the variable sports. It just means that it is evaluating the value of sports first, and if the value of sports is null, then it will not go to the other part, that is length. If it is null, then it will just return null, and if the value of sports is not null, then it will go to the next part, that is length, and it will evaluate length, and if length is null, it will return null. If length is not null, it will return the value of length. That's it. So let's see how we can do that. Let's print it out and check. You already know that the sports is null, right? So we are expecting a null value. Yes, as expected, it just returned null because it evaluated till sports and get to know that it's a null value. So it returned null. Let's change the value of sports to some another variable, I mean another value like cricket or something. Cool, and just run it. So we are expecting the length of the sports, right? Because it's not null anymore. We got it as 7, like the length of the cricket is 7 actually. See, 1, 2, yeah, 7. So that's how you can implement the safe call operator. Imagine if you want to return a specific value, if the value of the sports is null, you could opt for if else conditions, right? Like if sports is not equal to null, return something, and if sports is null, return something else. But the thing is that it is kind of really verbose, not at all concise. So in order to deal with that issue, Kotlin has introduced the Elvis operator. So let's see how we can implement it. Let us print the length of sports again. The difference is that this time we are going to return something else if it evaluates to null, if the sports value evaluates to null. Earlier we returned a null value, but this time we are going to return something else. So in order to do that, let's implement the Elvis operator. So the Elvis operator is just a question mark and a colon, and we are going to return some value, say 0. So look into this, the question mark and colon. This is called the Elvis operator. So it just broke this into two different expressions, the expression on the left and the expression on the right. If sports.length evaluates to non-null, then the value of the length will be sports.length, and if sports.length evaluates to 0, then it will return 0. Let's test it out. We are expecting 0 because sports is null. Let's see. Yeah, we got the value as 0. So let's change the value of sports as football or something, sorry, cricket or something, and try to run it again. Let's see. Now we got the value of the length of the sports, that is 7. Cool. Sometimes you are in a situation where you have a value x that you know is not null, but the compiler doesn't realize it. Maybe the compiler is not that brainy after all. Just kidding. But mostly it is happening because your code's logic is more complicated for the compiler to comprehend. So you can do something like adding double exclamation mark. So let me show you again, like print ln, and we are going to get the value of length. So we can add something like double exclamation mark here. The thing is, if you add double exclamation or the not null assertion operator, you have to be 100% sure that the value of sports won't be null. Since we have changed the value of sports into null again, it will end up in a null pointer exception. So just make sure that the sports value is not null. Let's change it into cricket again and try to print it again. You have to 101% sure when you use this operator. If it is somehow becomes null or something, it will end up in a null pointer exception. Just make sure. Okay. Today we learned about the nullability in Kotlin and why Kotlin handles null pointer exception better than Java. Also, we learned several ways to handle null safe cases. In the next chapter, we will learn about the functions in Kotlin. I am sharing today's code as a GitHub gist. You can find it in the link below. If you have any doubts or comments, please feel free to comment and I will answer you. Also, if you like the video, subscribe to my channel and click on the bell icon to get instant notifications. See you in the next class. Stay safe. Take care.